Welcome to the January 22nd, 2020 San Marino Planning Commission meeting. This is our first meeting of the new year, so Happy New Year to everyone and welcome. I am Jerry Wright, Vice Chair Dustin, Commissioners Boyle, Cheng, Okazaki are here with me. We have a quorum. Our alternate Ross is also here. And so we'll begin. And first, please rise and join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you all for coming out, taking time out from your busy schedules. We really appreciate it because without your help, believe me, we could not do our job. So thank you. We'll try to make this as efficient as possible. And with that, I do have some housekeeping comments. First, just to let you know that the agenda was posted at San Marino City Hall, San Marino Public Library, San Marino Recreation Department, and also on the city's website. As far as the process goes, each commissioner has received the plans and staff comments and has reviewed every item on the agenda and visited each site. The general order for the hearing will be as follows. Staff will discuss the case and provide background information and a recommendation. I'll ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to comment on the proposal. The hearing will then be open to the public, and I'll ask for comments for, against, or about the project. In all cases, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. And when speaking on an item, please do not repeat comments previously made. We like it a lot when you say you agree with the prior speaker. It makes things go easier. But obviously, if you have other comments, please present them. And at the conclusion of the public comments, I will close the public hearing and I'll ask for comments from each one of the commissioners. If the case involves a variance, that will go first, then a conditional use permit, and then a design review. We will discuss and act on each one of these items individually. If there's no motion for approval or denial, the Planning Commission has the option of continuing the application to a future meeting. And in the event of a continuance or denial, we do hope that the applicant will have heard the comments from the Commission during our deliberation, and that could be useful in submitting any kind of application. It's also important for the property owner to understand that once a project is approved by the Commission, the drawings become legal documents. And if any changes are made to the project subsequent to approval without obtaining proper approval of those changes, the property owner is in fact breaking the law. And we have had incidents with that, and the city will look at that harshly. So please be aware of that. And you may have to change the project back to the originally approved design or pay a fine and resubmit the project. It's also important to understand there's a 15-day appeal period after action has been taken for the applicant or any interested party to request the city council to review and act on the case. So the commission will usually take items in the order shown on the agenda. Sometimes we'll take them out of order if there's a large number of people in one item, I'm not sure in this case, or sometimes for administrative convenience. The commission will not start a new item after 11 p.m. I hope that won't matter tonight. And if they're not heard, they'll be carried over. We ask everyone to please keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Believe me, this isn't our first meeting, and we can basically understand everything you want to say in at least 3 minutes. So please keep that in mind. It really helps keep the agenda going. Okay, with that, we can start with public comments. This is the opportunity that you have to come forward and talk to the commission about anything that is not on the agenda. Is there anybody here who wants to talk to us about something that's within our purview, that we want the Planning Commission to know, but it's not on the agenda? Okay, I don't see anyone. So we can get going with the agenda. I don't know if there's anybody here in item number 4, which is just a request for extension. Yeah, you want to take down one? If we could just have a really short staff report on that, just in case there's somebody
separate.
there.
If you just show it which is time.
Yeah.
Quick staff report? Oh, sorry, I didn't know who it was.
Yeah, I was just flipping through the pages. Thank you, Chair. Item number 4 is a request for extension of the approval of conditional use permit number CUP 18-07 and design review case number DRC 18-52. The Planning Commission had granted the approval of a single-story addition project back in January 2019. The code requires that the property owner obtain building permit to start construction by January of 2020. The property owner has provided a request letter to staff and asking the commission to extend this approval up to 1 year because his family member experienced a health issue and he was not able to take on and process the project immediately, but he does intend to continue with the project and obtain building permit. Thank you.
Any comments or questions for staff? Motion?
I'll make a motion to grant the extension of the approval conditions permit number CUP 18-07 and design review case number DRC 18-52. Are they requesting for
1 year.
1 year
Yeah.
to January 2021?
Yeah, okay, till January 23rd, 2021.
I second.
Okay, motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that motion carries, thank you. All right, going back to the regular agenda, item number 1, related to 1100 Avondale Road, if we can have a staff report, please.
Good evening, Commission. Previously, this item was noticed for a conditional use permit, CUP 19-6. A request to exceed the number of allowable bedrooms, previously 8. As proposed, the addition will render a total of 6 bedrooms and will no longer require a conditional use permit. Additionally, the notice states the project will cause the property to exceed the maximum allowable lot coverage, which is also no longer the case since it falls within the allowable area. The item before you at this time is a DRC request for a first and second story addition. The proposal is for a demolition of approximately 1,200 square feet of livable area and to construct approximately 3,000 square feet for a total of 13,205 square feet of livable area on an approximately 84,000 square foot lot. The addition will involve new staff quarters, a new kitchen, dining area, new bathrooms on the first floor, and 2 new master suites and an office, a den on the second floor. In order to satisfy the parking requirements for a 6-bedroom residence, 3 enclosed parking spaces must be provided, and as such, a 2-car and a 3-car garage is being provided. Overall, the addition will not intensify the parking, privacy, or other functions of the property, and therefore be compatible with the surrounding residential uses. Staff would also like to note that 2 more neighbor letters were received today, and that's been updated to reflect in the handout that I gave you earlier.
You just received 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. There were 2.
Is there 2 signatories?
Well, there were 2 signatures for the neighborhood, what we affectionately call the neighborhood letters.
Okay.
And then outside of that, then there was an additional letter from 1005.
That's the one.
That's
we received.
That's the one. So, how can
Is there
I
another one
clarify
besides
that?
1005?
So for clarification, staff received 3 additional neighbors' letters since publication of the staff report. You are receiving only 1 of them because those other 2 did not have objection on the project. So they were supporting the project, and typically staff do not provide support letter to you. And just for clarification, the one that is provided to you tonight, the objection letter, is from a neighbor that is outside of the legal DRC neighborhood.
You figured that out, thank you.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that. So then the total tally for the approvals, objections, and no responses would read 4 approvals, 5 no response, and then 1 neither object or approve. Also, as I mentioned, as Eva mentioned, the letter that was dated is an objection letter, and that's provided just for your review. Let's see, and so given that, staff recommends approval of DRC 19-13, subject to the attached findings, conditions of approval, and CEQA determination.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? Vice Chair Dustin.
I have a couple questions, but first I'm going to start on a little bit of a tangential issue here. When I was visiting this property, I just happened to observe over on the grounds of the Huntington Library that borders to the east of this property, there was like a easy 50-foot high pile of construction dirt that was like hundreds of feet wide. They had plastic tarps on it that had been blown off and stuff. I just was a little concerned about, it's a little far away from houses, so it's not gonna hurt anybody if it collapses, but then I thought about interrupting natural water flow, drainage, things like that. Does anybody like periodically walk through the grounds of the library just to make sure that they're using construction site site practices, appropriate practices to maintain their construction dirt? It was a huge pile.
And it looks like you have a comment to make.
Yeah, I would like to make a comment. I kind of know that area because I recently visited the garden that they took me to the backside of the construction site of the Chinese garden.
Oh, okay.
They are at the edge of getting it completed.
Oh, yes.
So all the construction additional material were kind of piled along that
Right.
side. And they told, I just out of curiosity, I said, well, are we almost there? They said they will finish it quickly and they will get rid of all of that.
Okay.
So if you want, if the city want to make a comment on that to them, maybe the general contractor should look into that and provide the proper protection for the safety of the neighbor around there and also for training purpose too.
Yeah, I'll talk to Larry Burek, who's in charge of construction there.
Correct.
All right, thank you. That's good enough. So now on to this item. So this item was still listed on the agenda as having 2 associated DRC numbers, but I'm assuming that only DRC 1913 applies, correct? Because on the agenda, it still said, yeah.
Okay, so I believe that it is stated that there is a CUP,
Yes.
which I had mentioned is no longer going to be requested. And then there's only one DRC case or action,
Okay.
DRC
So they
19-13.
withdrawn the request for the conditional use permit.
Correct.
All right, and then last question. In this proposal, the applicant is proposing to remove the precast balustrades off the house, which I'm thankful for that. But I was just wondering, they're proposing to put hedging at the edge of this patio platform, which is like 2.5 feet off the ground level. Can you use hedges as a barrier like that? Is that acceptable?
Yes. Yeah, well, my understanding, hedges are a fence. It's the equivalent to a fence.
Okay.
Can you do that on a swimming pool?
No.
No, except for swimming pool. Yeah, good one.
All right, that's my only question. Thank you.
I'd like to ask the staff a question. So the 14-car subterranean garage that was proposed here, do you know what the reason is for not putting that? in?
14, yeah, I want to hear about that.
Yeah, that
Did they
was,
give you any reason?
that was just a personal preference to eliminate that. I'm going to leave that up to the applicants if they're willing to explain that.
I'm interested in.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they've eliminated the CUP for that project is really a voluntary thing on their behalf. So I'm going to leave that up to them to answer.
Any other questions with that? Yes, Commissioner Black.
I have one, and since it's 2020, I want to confirm that the new state law is that new homes get solar panels and only brand new homes.
Only
Yes.
brand, yes. sorry.
Okay.
Only brand new homes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, could the applicant or the applicant's representative please come forward? Taking the matters directly.
Hi, I'm James Twain, the architect, 30 Raymond Avenue, Pasadena, 91103. And I was trying to remember which ones of you were still on the board from, this case was heard about, you too, yeah. About 3 years ago, it had a subterranean garage of about 9,800 square feet. And to cut to the chase on it, the project got stalled. The owner's father died while we were in the middle of doing the working drawings and all this other stuff, and so she got busy on it. That's why we had to reapply. When we got the garage last time, the trees on the west, the San Marino's tree ordinance was different. And so our ramp was, we were going to have to remove some of those trees because of the ramp. When we reapplied, we did a historical report on the trees, and it was deemed that the trees weren't historic, but still in dealing with Ron, who I just learned isn't here anymore, there was still a desire to keep the trees. So the owner actually asked me to come up with some ideas where we actually did 2 plans where we reshaped the basement. We had to move the pool to do that, and we had to move some other things to do that. And then right around the holidays, she had another opportunity come up, and we decided, you know what, let's just get rid of the basement. So we actually were going to maybe come in with another basement, but within the last 4 or 5 weeks, we got rid of it. And so really now it's an addition of a master bedroom. Yeah. And because of that, we made the existing garages a little bit bigger to accommodate the right number of cars. But then otherwise, like Dustin said, we simplified the rails. They were a little decorative, so we're modernizing it just slightly, but keeping the same moldings, the same detail, same roofing, slightly lighter color, cleaning it up. Most of the work is really interior remodel. On the back, we're simplifying some of the windows. She actually built that house herself 20 years ago. I mean, not with a shovel and hammer, but she had it built for her. And some of the rooms, after living in them, they seemed a little dark. And so you'll notice some of the windows got bigger. The 2-story entry, we added a window to the top. Off the back, we added some sliding doors because it can be, big houses can sometimes be dark inside. And we got rid of some of the grids on some of the windows, but those are mostly the back-facing windows. It's a beautiful backyard, like you saw, and when you're there, you really don't want things blocking your view. So, yeah, it's really a master bedroom addition with a lot of interior wall moving. So that's essentially it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, the comment was, I mean, I remember the argument for the 14 car subterranean garage was obviously it was a car connector. We wanted to consolidate everything here.
There's still a car connector, but it will be somewhere else, and we'll let you know where it is. I know you wanted to go see it.
Yeah, here's some nice cars.
Yeah. True.
Commissioner Boyle?
So I just wanted to get some clarification on A22 versus A24. You have, I don't know how best to describe it, but where you have this den and office and adjoining full back.
So A22?
Yeah, but so on the drawings of A22, it's labeled as office den, and A24 is labeled bedroom, and I want to know which is it.
Oh, that was, okay, on the upstairs?
Yes.
That was one of the bedrooms that were in contention, and when working with Ava, we used the door, so it is an office den, actually, yes. Because I think one of them might have had the existing plan might have had a door on it, and then we ended up taking the door off as we worked with the bedroom. Where does it say bedroom? Which page?
On the very next sheet, it labels it as a bedroom versus an office, and so I just...
On the square footage plan,
Yeah.
A24? Yeah, since the square footage didn't change, we didn't change that sheet. It's an office den, because there's no door on it.
Okay.
If we're talking about the same room.
I think so, except there's a door on it.
You're on the second floor, right?
Yeah.
And there's one room that has a door. And
Oh, you're saying the den now doesn't have a door?
Yeah, that had a door before.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we took it off. And the bedroom
okay.
count, but then, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Anyone else like to speak for the Mississauga project, please come forward.
My name is Molly Purnell. I'm representing the neighbor to the west at 1060 Avenue. The only concern that we had was looking at the site plan. The trees that you were just talking about on the west, there's a number of redwoods that aren't indicated on the survey, because I think when I was looking at the survey, it indicated that only trees with a trunk of 24 inches or greater were on the site survey. And a lot of the times the redwoods don't have really big trunks. So we would love to see that those trees would be added to the survey to indicate that they wouldn't be removed or wouldn't be touched. I don't know if you have this survey. And also the landscape plan as well.
The applicant's representative is agreeing to add that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, applicant's representative. Anyone else like to speak for or against or about the project? Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Okay, commissioners, Commissioner Oppenheim, would you like to start? Excuse me.
I have no comment, excuse me.
I like the old project just as well. This is downsized. It's fine. It would have been the only, I think, project in the city with 14 cars subterranean garage. And I wanted to see it when it was built, and some of those classic cars. But anyway, thank you very much.
Sure.
Commissioner Chan.
Well, it's a beautiful project, and I think studying the details and how well it was laid out, I have no problem approving.
Vice Chair Dustin.
Yeah, I have a little bit of mixed feelings just on the size. But I don't know, I'll give you the pros and cons. It's a huge lot. The existing house is really minimally visible from the street or from any of the neighboring properties, and most of that is the Huntington Library. But it is a tremendously large house already and will be even more so. It's not the largest lot in the neighborhood. It's not even half as big as the largest lot in the legal neighborhood. But the proposed house would be probably about 4,000 square feet larger than the next largest home in the legal neighborhood. So they're adding, about 2,000 square feet onto this house. So I'd be curious to hear what other people think about the size and the impact. But again, it's really minimally visible. My only issues with the design proposed, the existing fenestration on the house is not cohesive. I'm not a person who buys into the argument, oh, it's in the back of the house, nobody's gonna see it, so we can do whatever we want. The house needs to be integral in its design. And so I think any new windows that are added to the home should have divided lights to match the divided lights that are on the home already. The ones that are already there that are plate glass, that will have to stand. Also, I was a little confused because the plans seem to indicate that the balcony railings on the second floor are tube that are steel. It doesn't say steel, but it just says tube, and that makes me nervous because that really should be wrought iron, not steel tubing. Also, I'm assuming that an addition of this size would require exterior lighting. Again, the house is fairly isolated, but light is something that can penetrate very easily into neighbors. It would be nice to sort of see where they plan to put lights. And then lastly, my understanding is front yard hedges in this district are limited to 4 feet or to the height of the fence behind the hedge. And when I was there, the height of the hedge substantially exceeds the height of the fence. So I'd like to see a condition that be brought into compliance. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle?
Well, I mean, I did agree with the findings in the staff report, and I also really agree with what Commissioner Dustin has shared in terms of the size of the home. And you're right, I mean, it's not visible from the street, it's a very large property, but it also is it's a very large home. Some of the concerns that I had more so did have to do with, I hate to say this, I mean, you know that I tend to have a suspicious nature about me. And looking at the, I don't want to open everything up, but looking at the bedroom layout,
Door?
uh-huh. I mean, just all of them, like all of the different rooms, like there's a bedroom with a reading suite next to it, I think, and a master suite next to another, his bedroom, or, you know, there was just a lot of additional space next to bedrooms, and I would obviously be concerned that with slight tweaks, you can make those rooms into additional bedrooms with a shared bathroom.
Right.
And I counted it, and it could become, in theory, with slight tweaks, and again, I don't know if it would have to go through any process, you know, to put a door back in that office with the den space. You know, you are now talking about the potential of a 9-bedroom house.
Right, and staff reminds me, I already asked this question, of course I've forgotten the answer. For a 9-bedroom house, how many garage spaces?
Oh, jeez.
Because they're providing 5.
Right,
Because normally, of course, 3 is for anything in addition to 4.
right,
So they're already, they're providing the 3 and 2 more.
exactly.
But is it like 8 bedrooms? You know, I don't know.
They can go up to 10, really.
With the 5, with the
Right.
5 garage?
Right.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be able to go up to 10 bedrooms without a CUP.
You're right. You're right about that. Yes.
Well, that's
So,
true. That's true.
I mean, and so I guess the question is, I mean, with sleight of hand and adding a door, I mean, can somebody add a door without having to go through our process to then all of a sudden have a maximum number of allowable bedrooms that have gone under the radar in terms of the CUP? And that's, I mean, so I'm just saying that this is something that I'm very, I'm very concerned about,
And you know, I
because,
agree with that, but it's usually the garage space that's, it's certainly a major factor, which I
Right.
think they have. And then if you were looking at a huge property, all those bedrooms in the CUP,
uh-huh.
what else would you be looking at besides the garage space, which they're providing?
Well, because we have, we only allow allowable number of bedrooms.
No, I understand.
And I
that.
understand that it's tied to garage space, but I'm also saying that, like, I mean, they would have to have a CUP to go above the allowable bedrooms. I mean, unless I'm misunderstanding what's being
No,
said.
well, what, a
And so-
design review looks at certain things, conditional
Mhm.
use looks at certain things. Some of it overlaps as far as I'm concerned. So that's all I'm saying. What else would we be looking at if we had a conditional use in front of us? Size of,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of things we were looking at.
Okay.
Bedrooms in the
I don't know, help me
garage.
staff.
And yeah, and the other thing is, historically speaking, we've always approved projects at all levels of the city pursuant to what's in front of us.
Of course.
And we've never taken the stance of assuming sort of the worst in sort of our the residents, in that they're going to just violate the code.
And that's true.
And so
but,
from
you
a
know,
legal perspective,
I know.
we're approving what's in front of us with the expectation that this is
Right.
what's going to get built. And there will be inspections to ensure that this is per the plan at final inspection. What happens thereafter, eventually things can come back if things are done illegally. Like, for example, when a property changes hands for sale, there's a compliance process where they provide a drawing of the interior. And we do catch things that are in violation at that stage,
Yeah.
so.
And I know that we approve what's in front of us, but I know that we also have sent things back to have drawings adjusted to ensure ensure clarity that a door is not like widening the space to 6 feet. And other things that we've done to make sure that a door can't easily be put in there. And so I'm just, that's why I'm bringing it up, because there is the potential of that happening, and I think it's something to be worth discussing in terms of, not that I necessarily have any recommendations about, like, open up that den door more.
You could do it.
If-
You can.
Okay, I mean, I would have to look at,
I know.
I'd have to look at all
And
the
then we don't
openings.
really like to design places for.
Yeah.
We're not really qualified. Except Marie. Commissioner Ross, did you have any comments? Commissioner Ross?
No, I also thought about the size, but that is a large home area. And as long as they stayed within the limits, it's okay with me. I do feel like they could increase the number of bedrooms, which would offer an opportunity to get more in a sale price, but I don't think that's what the people are looking for in their ownership. So that's basically all I have to say.
Thank you. I share a lot of the same comments and concerns. I prefer this project to the prior one, so from my point of view, thank you. I really love that you're keeping all the trees. I think that's just great. And we thank you for that. I really, it's a beautiful property with all those trees. I too, as my colleagues know, always get a little excited when I see a project that's to the maximum of what's allowed. And it's not just because I worry about massing, because here, I don't really worry so much about massing. Yes, it's a huge property, but it's a huge lot, and it's so good in it. But I just do know from, as I like to say, bitter experience, that projects that are proposed to be at the maximum tend to be built over the maximum. Things tend to happen during building. And so I always worry about that when they're very close. So I just do caution you to be sure to, if you receive approval tonight, to please comply with your plans and make sure you don't go over the limit within our zone. So I share the same views about the bedrooms, but for me, I think having the extra garage spaces helps with a lot of that. So I could support it, support the finding response staff. And I think for me, the only question I have for my colleagues is what, if any, conditions that we want to add. I definitely want to add the condition related to adding the trees that the neighbor asking the applicant has agreed to. So we'll add that condition. And then, yes, please.
And then you have to say the wrought iron rating. That's condition 2, wrought iron rating rather than 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that. All right, so we'll do that. We'll make sure that
hedge
it's.
brought into compliance.
The
We want
front
that.
hedge.
Okay.
The hedge.
All right, we want the
Up
hedge.
to the
changed.
I don't-
lines.
The windows are important to me, but I don't know if there's
I
any
think-
support for that amongst the body.
That's a good
I
idea.
think that you need to have cohesive.
I don't know how many windows are we talking about.
I didn't count them.
Quite a few. So, to the applicant, if you were to request you to match the window to the French window, we would have no objection to that.
Well, they talk, can I suggest a condition to go along with what you're needing there? We've always requested informally to our staff, square footage verifications. There's also setback verifications. So engineers provide us with documentation that tells us that the square footage is valid and been measured. The same thing goes with setbacks. So you can add that condition.
Thank you. And at what stage do you have that verification?
Well, for example, setbacks.
Is it built? Because then what do you do?
No, well, I mean, well,
See, I'm a suspicious person.
for example, the setback verifications would be at likely foundation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the square footage would be at framing.
Framing,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
And you
We're
can
gonna
always
start
do-
adding-
you can always
start
ask for it.
adding that to every,
Yeah.
we like that.
You could.
Thank you.
We would like that condition also. Do you have any?
We'll put the grids on, sure.
You gonna put the grid on?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, yeah, let's do that. All
Then
right.
I'm okay with it.
And
Okay.
then, all right.
Oh.
All right,
The
we're,
problem is
okay.
that then they have to come
All right,
back.
all right,
to
we're,
put
okay.
lighting in.
Then we're being, okay, good. All right, so do I have a motion?
Someone would have to make my recommended conditions
Oh, instead
part
of
of the
saying
motion.
yes?
It's not, I'm not making a motion here,
I was going to.
so someone needs,
All right.
needs to make that statement.
We were going to do that, weren't we?
Yeah.
All right, so, which one is it?
Oh, I'll
Okay.
ask that we also add a condition that we ask for square footage verification at appropriate points through the construction process to verify that the project is maintained.
And setback.
And do we need the setback as well?
If you want.
Yeah.
Oh, and the setback,
Setback
correct.
verification.
Setback.
The window?
That, you will
Oh,
now have a
and-
motion.
And that all windows that are added have appropriate divided lights
Yeah.
to match
Right.
the ones
Five
that the ones that exist.
Okay.
Okay. So the motion is to approve with those additional conditions, right?
Yes, all right, so we have a motion to approve the design review case DRC 1913 with the condition related to.
Actually, I think I just suggested the condition, so let me just, to
You
be
did all of it?
perfectly clear, I'm going to make a motion to approve DRC 1913 at 1100 Avondale Road with the aforementioned conditions. I saw Eva looking at me like, you didn't get the cross.
Well, I can do that, you can say all of them, with the windows and the wrought iron and the edge and the verification.
Correct.
All right.
I'll second.
And the
All right,
trees.
we have a motion and a second. Oh my gosh, please pull the condition.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Okazaki,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyle,
Yes.
Vice Chair Dustin,
Yes.
Chair Wright,
Yes,
motion carried.
thank you. Thank you, that seemed harder than it had to be. But we got there. All right, so now, item number 2, 2275 Oak Hill Avenue. If we can have a staff report.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting design review actions for construction of a new single-family residence and an accessory structure visible from public view, which exceeds 600 square feet. However, the plans show a bathroom attached to the 3-car garage and also proposed front yard fencing. These items are not a part of this request at this time, but the applicant intends to bring a separate CUP and DRC application before the commission at the next scheduled meeting. Currently, the applicant proposes to demo all the buildings on site and construct an approximately 6,000 square foot 2-story residence with a detached 3-car garage. And it will be in keeping with the ratio of livable area to lot area within the neighborhood. The proposed architectural style for the new residence will be neoclassical and is similar in massing and scale to the newer existing, what I call Palladian style homes within the immediate vicinity, and therefore will be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The residence also features porticoches on each side of the structure and along the driveway side of the property. The placement of the porticoche reduces the visibility of the detached garage from public view, along with the placement of the garage approximately 150 feet from the front property line. So based on the facts and findings stated in the report, staff recommends approval of design review case number 19-27 HP and design review case number DRC 19-28, and subject to the conditions of approval and also the CEQA determination.
All right, thank you. Questions for staff? Commissioner Chang?
I missed part of the earlier statement about they'll come back another day for another CUP.
So there's,
What does that mean?
right, so there's 2 items that weren't listed in the notice. One of them being a CUP, let's see if I can just go back over here. A CUP for the bathroom to an accessory structure, and then also.
Which was the garage?
So it's, the garage, detached garage. And then also front yard fencing, which is a DRC action. So those 2 will come back at a later date, or it's scheduled tentatively for the next piece, or PC meeting.
Why are we not doing it all at once?
Because the noticing was improperly
Fair.
noticed.
So they decided to go forward with the DRC project.
Correct.
Would they need a CUP for the front yard fence?
No, the CUP is for the bathroom
bathroom,
that's
and then
attached to
the
the
DRC for
to
the
the
garage.
garage,
Okay.
right.
All right.
I have a question just for clarification. If by any chance we were to continue this project to another meeting with that CUP and DRC action, it would be added back
You
to
could,
this?
yeah, both of them together and then approve it as one package. But the applicant doesn't prefer either way, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Vice Chair Dustin.
What is the minimum front setback allowed for this particular property?
It's got 50. Wait, that's over here.
Not the hedge, you want the minimum?
I want to know the minimum, not what they're proposing. I suspect it's the same, but I want to know.
So front yard setback,
40 feet, and they're
they have
proposing
50 feet.
Yeah.
And then, again, on a slight tangent, I believe that front yard hedges on this section of Oak Knoll are limited to 8 feet. When I was visiting this property, I noticed the front hedge at this property, as well as 2285, 2233, 2230, and 2201 Oak Knoll all appear to exceed that allowable height. So,
Somewhere beyond.
That's been going on a long time.
So
Yeah,
in the
they-
code, the code outlines there are certain streets or designated streets that are allowed to have a hedge in excess of the normal 6 feet.
yeah, this, it says 8 feet
Yeah,
for Oak Knoll, north of Huntington.
So for
Yeah.
Oak Knoll, yes.
Some of them may be older, but, I mean, some of them are clearly brand new.
Okay, that changes everything. Yeah,
That's an enforcement issue, and so,
we'll take care of it.
they're not gonna like their neighbors. Their neighbors aren't gonna like you now.
You got those items.
Other questions? All right, anybody else, questions from staff?
Just a typo, I think, on the report, on page,
This one.
page 3, the proposed structures to plan of the neighborhood, the last paragraph. I think it says that the last sentence says the new home will be 5,950 square feet. I believe
Yeah, I saw
they're
that.
5,940 feet, just a
Correct.
touch off. They're not going for the maximum, they're 10
40.
feet short.
Right.
That's just a typo.
Good catch, yeah.
Yeah, it also says in the first paragraph on that page too.
That's what I saw.
Yeah.
This one's 40.
So we'll correct that. But
Oh,
I,
is it on the plan?
On the plan, see 40. Yeah.
Oh.
I have a question too that's really consistent with what Vice Chair Dustin was talking about and about the front setback. But mine's more about the, I would call the prevailing setback. And I don't know if you know the prevailing front yard setback there. But for example, when we look straight on, because I'm not good with direction, but I would say the house to the north or to the right for me has set way back.
Yeah.
The one on the left is less so, but when I went up and down the street, I felt like this proposed project is closer to the street than the prevailing setback.
It absolutely.
Yeah,
Takes
and I
them all.
was very troubled by that, but I want to know if there is some, math behind my observation? Not math, really, but if you know what the prevailing setback is and if they're within it.
But they only require 40 feet on both sides of the new.
But I think-
Newer buildings are, you're right, they're all closer to the street.
They do get that way. I personally think, it's just my opinion, of course, if I get two people to agree with me, I guess it's the commission's opinion. But for me, I think good planning is a prevailing setback. I think good planning has them as close to even as they can be. It just looks better, it's just a more even kind of zoning pattern and a plan. That's just an idea.
Yeah.
All right, but so I just didn't know if there's, like I said, some numbers behind my observation.
Typically, and not for this analysis, where there prevailing front setbacks that were studied, but that could very well be something that staff could do if you wanted to eventually continue this to the next meeting.
Okay, that was helpful, thank you. Any other questions?
I think there's one more technical reason. If we were to act on this today with a portion of the application, and then when they come back next time, for whatever reason, if that didn't get approved, then how would that affect the overall project? I worry about the fact that you separate two applications on the same project, and then you approve part of it. I've seen that happen before, that way.
Here they're independent.
Properly noticed.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that because that would create a problem for ourselves,
Mhm.
where you approve a portion of a project, and then the other portion come in, I think, one CUP, and what's the other one?
A DRC.
For the fence.
For the,
For the fence, for them, sorry.
So people come in and just objecting to that, then what does that mean? Does it mean the project will go or partially go?
Well, this design review is the main house. So it seems to me if they received approval for a main house but did not receive approval for a fence or a bathroom and a garage, it really wouldn't impact the main house. But I totally agree with you that there are applications where that would very much be difficult to piecemeal. I'm not sure this is one of those, I mean, I don't know. But there still may be a good reason to continue it for.
Do we want to hear our comments and then maybe see if that's a concern?
Yeah, I think we should.
To see if.
I'm sure there are a few.
Our
Ours?
comments. And, well, I mean, of course, the public too, because
Yeah,
they're here.
yeah, that's-
Somebody's
yeah,
starting
so-
to talk.
Yeah.
We should hear that.
Yeah, definitely, we could speak to that as well. For later. Okay, with that in mind, would the applicant or the applicant's representative please come forward? Or both?
Sure.
Good evening, planning commissioners. My name is Adele Chang. I'm with the architects, LCRA.
Yes, I'll plug it in.
And please excuse us while we set this up, while we set up our presentation. We happened to set it up ahead of time, but then we weren't sure if the other architect would also need this, so.
Take your time.
Let's start with the PowerPoint, and then we'll do the model.
Yeah. Who last year?
Here we go.
All right, here we go.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, I haven't seen them.
Okay, next slide. I have an exhibit here which addresses what Ms. Wright was talking about. May I step forward, or maybe I can, if I can use the, is there?
Here. Done.
No, back.
Done.
Back.
Done.
Yeah,
There you go.
okay. Will this work?
Yeah.
There's a small button you have to press down continuously.
Okay. So this is our general neighborhood. Here's Huntington Drive, here's Oak Knoll. This is the west side, the east side. This is our site. As you can see, there is quite a difference between the east and west side of Oak Knoll. And the first three lots on Oak Knoll are actually kind of more standard, normal type lots, and we're one of those. And, and they're very similar in size and shape and width and so forth to the lots across the street. But as we move north, we start to have some really huge lots. Some of them actually go all the way back here. And then here's one currently under construction that is more kind of the more normal kind of width and so forth. But some of these are very irregular and very different. They're even oriented differently from everybody else. They're just oversized and kind of at an angle. And I know this one's super deep, but kind of, because Granada actually curves and turns into Wilson. Yeah, so it's quite irregular here, and as you go further north, there's actually a wash that daylights in that area. That's why the northern end of Oakno is kind of different and has some unique and pretty fantastic lots. But on the south end, near Huntington, they're more kind of your normal street grid, normal type of lots, of which we're one. So, next. So here's our site plan dropped into that same Google Earth map. This is how we relate to our neighbors to the south, and I agree the neighbors to the north, their lots are much deeper and they're different. It's hard to tell, but it's almost like this one has no backyard but has a really large front yard. Next. So that was the site. I hope it sort of helps visualize.
I had actually seen that before, yeah, good.
Yeah. And here's our elevation. We've designed it in what the city's design guidelines call the neoclassical style. And it's a house with painted brick, a pediment porch, shutters, and it has a porte cochere on the north side, but it actually has a trellis top. The owner really wanted a covered area, semi-covered area, next to the side door where they can load and unload groceries directly to the kitchen. And on this side is actually a porch off the dining room. And part of the beauty of having these lower pieces is it makes it so that our side yard setbacks are more than twice the minimum that they're required to be, thus creating kind of a smaller, tighter house, providing greater privacy from the adjacent houses. And you will see in the site plan mix, the house to the south is actually very, very close to the property line. So this really helps both houses. Next. Here it is, the neoclassical style. This is a scan from the city's own residential design guidelines. It says, the facade is should be dominated by a two-story portico that is pedimented, which we have. Columns are typically either Ionic or Corinthian, which ours is Doric columns, so more simple than Ionic or Corinthian. And there's a red brick exterior wall, double hung windows, we have those. We have brick, but it's a painted brick, which I think actually makes it, I think it softens it to have the painted brick. It adds texture without, bright red. And there are examples of this style in various treatments. And then also extensive use of shutters, which we also have next. So we've tried to stay very true to that style. And this style is actually found kind of all over San Marino. There are many, I could get way many more pictures than this, but these just happen to be two. This one is that classic look with the, once again, double height front portico that's pedimented, and this one has the red brick as well. Here's another version of that, and I have the addresses here, and it's a white version, basically, but very similar. So I feel that we fit in, and actually, after we finished the design and had already submitted, a sign went up across the street, and it's actually a house also in this style. If you have visited the site, you would see it, but it has the red brick, so we're so glad that we are not identical, but that we have painted brick. We had no idea. Next. So here's our site plan. You can see our 50-foot instead of 40-foot setback. And here's our garage. which is supposed to receive, this is something as an aside that I want to mention. The city, the zoning ordinance talks about garages being a maximum of 600 square feet. But the standard size for a parking stall is 10 by 20 for inside the garage. So if you have a 3-car garage and some walls, it is always going to be over 600 square feet because square footage is calculated, including the wall. So that piece of the code is always very troublesome to me. Why is it 600? Why is it not 650? So you allow for some walls. But so it always becomes kind of this item that as if we're not meeting the maximum, we're exceeding the maximum when all we're doing is meeting the code by having 10 by 20 parking spaces. So I just wanted to bring that up. Here's our site plan. It's fairly symmetrical, just like the composition of the house. And there's a pool, and there's currently an existing tennis court, but that's being mostly demoed with just a little area here so they can play some hoops. But it's going back to kind of turf and so forth. Next. The floor plan, basically it's a pretty, the plan basically is based on the owner's wishes and their requirements and the way they live and so forth. And otherwise it's a fairly symmetrical arrangement.
If I could ask you to conclude, Sue.
So, okay, I'll move quick. Next, second floor, you guys have looked at it. Move on next. Roof plan, here it is, a semi-covered porte-cochere and porch. Roof plan, next. Here are the front elevation you saw before. Now you have the back elevation, also very symmetrical and formal. Next. Our side elevations. Next. And here we are with a street scene. Next. Garage. Next. Next. And there's a little covered barbecue area. We also have a landscape plan. Unfortunately, the landscape architect couldn't make it, but if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer. Next. Okay. We also are required to provide a model, so what we have is a digital model. Rotate it however you wish. Let's just kind of move around. So here's the porch of the dining room on the south side. Here's the north side and the porte-cochere. And there's our front with the shutters and okay. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for the applicant for today? Commissioner Webb?
I'm sure I'm going to be bringing this up for the first few months of 2020. I imagine you are aware of the new state guidelines that you have to install solar panels?
Yes.
Okay. And that is part of something that will be done at completion of the construction?
Yes, it's usually a design-build type of item. There'll be a solar contractor who will come in and do all their layouts and so forth. Most likely it'll be on the south and west and east side, and not the north.
Thank you.
Hopefully not the east side, that'll be the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least we have south and west.
Vice Chair Dustin?
I just wanted to clarify a discrepancy. I saw the plan information sheet lists the height of the house as 32 feet 2 inches, whereas on the plan elevations, it's 3110. I'm assuming that's an error on the plan information sheet?
Yes, I would go with the actual elevations, that's more accurate, it's AutoCAD dimension more accurate.
I have some questions about the fence and gate work, but I'm going to defer that since that's not going to be discussed tonight. Can you give a little more detail on the type of stucco finish you're proposing?
It'll be a smooth.
When you say smooth, can you be more specific? I mean, is it a sand finish? Is it like those new contemporary ultra smooth finishes?
We would be happy to do either a sand finish or smooth steel trowel finish,
Okay.
as whichever the commission prefers.
All right. And will you be installing any exterior lighting other than what's depicted in the plans?
We prefer not to do a lot of lights on the house. There will be a lantern at the front, and we will need to put in lighting that's required by code at doors, but I prefer not to have a lot of bright hot spots on a house, and I would prefer to have landscape lighting and that type of thing for safety. And
So for your required like egress lighting and things like that, are you envisioning all enclosed undercover fixtures, or are you going to have wall sconce fixtures that are going to be exposed, visible?
It is my preference not to have a lot of wall sconces. Egress lighting, I don't think is, the 1-foot candle thing is not required for single family. And I would prefer landscape lighting, again, low-level lighting, so there are not too many hot spots on the house. I think it just draws too much attention to the house.
I mean, usually though, there's a light where there's a door.
Right,
So that
if
you
I
can
can
see.
do recess, if I
So
can
you're
do
talking about recess,
recess,
yeah,
I would
okay.
prefer recess. And we
That's-
have enough porches and such that where the doors are happening, there's always something above.
Last question, do you have a materials board?
We do.
Oh, never mind. It has the color.
Commissioner Chan?
Yes, just a couple more questions on the roofing material. What type of roofing material?
It is a composition shingle material from the approved list, from the city's pre-approved list. It's Certainty Presidential County Gray. It's from the city's pre-approved list.
So it's kind of a thin, not asphalt shingle, is it?
It is. It's like a
People used
fiberglass
to-
asphalt mix,
Right.
yeah.
That's what people used to call it, but it's not actually asphalt.
Yeah.
They come with 40-year guarantees and they're non-flammable. And again, it's on the city's pre-approved list.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Sure.
Anyone else who would like to speak for or against or about this project? Please come forward. Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. All right, commissioners, Commissioner Chen, we'll start with you.
It's a It's a beautiful lot, it's got the size, got everything going for it. I was driving by and looking at the storage rooms, and at 32 feet height, so
It's up there.
feet from the front yard. That seems a little imposing. That's my first impression. A lot of people know that these can be actually very easily moved back to give a better protection. The house, proportionally, I think you try to pick up the height rather than pick up the spread wider. So if you really look at it, it appears to me that the proportion isn't quite right. It looks like it's too narrow, too tall, and it's too much towards the front. I think that's probably the biggest drawback on this. I think it could be easily solved by maybe site plan wise, push the thing back a little bit, and then maybe look at you got a 10-foot plate height of the first floor and 9 foot in the second, which a house of this size, you're pushing it to the limit, but the roof attic space, I think we picked up about 8 feet on top of that. So that's very tall per se. I don't know if the roof slope, what is it now, whether proportionally you can make it a little bit lower in the attic area to make it proportionally more pleasing. And other than that, I think the rest of things, I have no problem with the size, the layout of the site plan and all of that. One thing I do realize that we're taking about 10 trees out. I don't know, I don't see 10 trees going back in.
And
That's one part that concerns me. I mean, the landscape architect will probably need to do some mitigation on how we're going to the site, get those trees back. There's 10 trees gone. So I don't think we're ready I'm not ready to act on it today because one is not properly noticed on the garage and also in the front. I think the landscape architect has some work to do to address those 10 trees that are being removed. So that's how I feel.
Vice Chairman?
Yeah, I concur with Mr. Chang's comments. I also noticed, I noticed it before, but it really stands out on the 3D layout. Just the verticality of that design is just very narrow and tall. I'm going to preface my thoughts with just my primary concern, which is I think there's too much information missing from these plans to appropriately evaluate this project as is. The stonework is described as a thin-set brick veneer. A lot of those veneers look really good, but a lot of them look really bad. And if you don't provide the manufacturer and product detail information, we can't verify whether it's appropriate or not. The exterior lighting fixtures, there's only one light on the main structure. It's that entry light lantern. There's no information about the manufacturer or details on the light. I'm going to withdraw my comments here about the front fence pilaster lights because we'll talk about that another time. But again, on a project this size, I have a hard time believing there's not going to be any other light fixtures visible, and I'd need to know who's going to make them and what are they going to look like. I have potential privacy concerns for this property to the rear. My evaluation of privacy in part depends on the landscaping. The landscaping plan is labeled conceptual. You pointed out, they're taking trees out. I don't see a lot of trees going in. The trees that are on the landscape plan, it doesn't specify the species, it doesn't specify the size. Without that information, I can't evaluate the potential privacy impact and the impact on the local tree canopy. Those are jobs that we're supposed to be doing. So that said, I'll share some thoughts about the proposed design. Yeah, I also noticed the visual massing is just really excessive and not compatible with the neighborhood. The primary contributors to that massing is the large livable square footage that's being asked. I think that's doable with some massaging, but the plate heights are excessive. They're not consistent with the existing plate heights in homes in the neighborhood. Also, you know, a lot of these homes there's some really good architecture on this section of the Milton, but there's some really bad architecture too. The houses that share a very close front yard setback, like this project, they're all one story at the front and they start to step up. You don't see any homes at 50 feet that go up 2 stories right from the get-go. I paced off a lot of the homes in that block there. You asked about the prevailing, it's about 60 feet. There are some that are at 50 feet, but again, they're either single-family homes or 2-story homes that start out 1 story and go up. So yeah, comparably sized homes in the neighborhood are set further back and their overall height is lower, so it's, you don't get that imposing push visually. The 8-foot entry door is just, again, it's just an overreach, and I think that would fix itself with a corrected plate height. The proposed side lights on the entry door extend to the floor. That's just a very contemporary design feature. You would not see that in a traditional design on a home like this. It's just not compatible. You know, traditional side lights terminate in wood panels that are about half to 2/3 of the way down from the top of the door. The elliptical transom, the glazing in it, the glass panels have these long dagger-like features on them because of the length that it's covering. I think a stilted arch in that ellipse would create panels that are more in proportion to the doors and the side light, the door and the side lights. The proposed roofing material, while it is on the pre-approved list, it is only pre-approved where there is already pre-existing composite shingle. It is not pre-approved. And I don't think, you know, on a home of this stature, I'm not sure that that's a good choice. So, and then I'm not quite sure, oh, well, the gates and all that stuff and the fencing, I'll save that for, I don't know, is the pedestrian gate part of the fencing DRC? It is, I think, a whole lot of that. I'm a little concerned that the proposed paint scheme doesn't provide sufficient contrast, but now that I saw the materials board, I'm not sort of quite concerned about that. And again, the front hedge is over 8 feet, so anyway, that's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Sorry. All right, Commissioner Boyle?
I'm not going to repeat everything that the other 2 commissioners so far have mentioned, but I will say that I wholeheartedly agree. I wanted to kind of focus, because I knew that John would handle a lot of the design stuff. I definitely wanted to focus a lot more on the landscape plan. Completely inadequate, that I knew going into this that I would not be able to approve it as is. It would have to be a continuance for me at the very least. I'm very concerned about, you know, in the arborist report, we have 21 trees that are listed. Of those, 8 or 9 are coming down, but what's interesting is that of the trees that are remaining, many of them are in poor or fair health, which indicates to me that those are going to probably be coming down too and should be listed. There's no indication on the landscape plan which trees are original, what the replacement trees are, what size box you're putting in. I have no idea what kind of shade canopy you're going to be creating. I also noticed that as much as I'm going to call it green space, it's astroturf. It is not lawn. I'm sure that we don't have anything that restricts that, but personally, it is just something that I think is it doesn't enhance our community, is what I want to say. In my opinion, I don't think it enhances it. I also think that it probably would cause more problems in terms of absorption of water getting to the trees that they want, because it is layers of plastic, and you know, I mean, water sits on top of it. It does not drain as easily as people think, which means that the root structures underneath it, the tree, you know, the trees that need the water are not going to be getting it. And that causes me a lot of concern to have that much AstroTurf on this property, because it essentially turns it into just 25% landscape, you know, or softscape, I guess I want to call it, true softscape. And I think that was my biggest issue with this, aside from the things that we always mention, that it's so at the point of the maximum level, that of course it's going to affect the massing, as everybody's talked about. I think it definitely needs to be set back, et cetera, et cetera.
Very helpful, thank you. Commissioner Zaleski?
You know, Oak Knoll is it's a collector street. No, it's more of a secondary highway. The bus runs on there, so it really is a sort of a entryway into south end of San Marino, actually. And so I think the houses need to make some statement on the quality of our community. But I did notice on the projects on the east side, they are, when it was approved several years ago, I was surprised that the commissioners were not as critical as this committee is on what it looks like. Anyway.
I like to think
That was
it's
very difficult,
thorough.
James.
I prefer
Well,
thorough.
we had some tough commissioners, I tell you. You know, I didn't vote on it myself. I was sitting where Ross was sitting, listening in, made some comments, but, you know, I take Oak Knoll quite a bit, besides Granada. I'll also take that. So this is my entryway into my home area from the south. So but Oak Knoll is a big thoroughfare. But everybody that comes to San Marino, I think, going to the Langham, drives on Oak Knoll. And I think the commissioners are making a good statement. We kind of want to, well, I think the homeowners too, I think would like to be further away, if they can, away from the main thoroughfare, the 50 feet. I think it's 10 feet better than the requirement, but if you could go maybe another 10 feet, it might be better for the homeowners. And like I said, the last set of commissioners approved the project on the north side that you're talking about. I thought it was too massive at that time. And so if you could lower it, like Raymond was saying, that would be cool. I think it'll blend in better. I think it'll be more attractive. But I'm also in support of sort of delaying the decision on it until we look at two things: the landscaping, which I'm also concerned about, but also how the gate, your driveway gate, your pedestrian gate is going to look like, in the landscaping in the front. I think you might be able to mass reduce the massing with a proper gating system and tree planting, so it doesn't look as massive. But I still think if you could bring it down to below 30 feet height, I think it'd be better if you can, whatever you can, to reduce that mass so close to the street. So if you can move it back and bring it down, I think, you know, and work with a proper landscaping, reducing in fact, eliminating the AstroTurf and going with the actual grass would be better. Anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross, would you like to say anything?
You know, I looked at the plans. They show a little different picture than when you get right down to the street level. And I really like this house. I think it's one of the few things that appeals to me, this neoclassical. But when I got to the site, I drove right in the driveway because there wasn't much room to park on the street. And I looked up and looked up further, and it was still way up there. And I'm thinking, okay, that's part of the neoclassical look. And I understood that. And especially if I looked across the street and saw the home that was almost identical. I think the main point that has been made is that it is too much for that size of a lot. And it could be made in a smaller silhouette, if not height. The other comments I completely agree with. I mean, the landscaping and the fencing and so forth, even though I know on Oak Knoll you have to have something to knock the street noise down, and everybody has a long, tall hedge in front. So I think I'll just hang in with the comments that have been made.
Thank you. All right, well, I just want to say that I am constantly impressed by this commission, and I'm going to say thoroughness of this commission. Really, and it makes my job so easy. And I think when we first started with my preliminary comments, we talked about if a project were to be continued, that we would want to know that the applicant's representative, really listening to the commission and taking into account what the commission thinks should happen with the project. And I think we have done a very good job of saying what we think needs to be done, because I think it's kind of clear that there's a consensus of continuing, and that we think it's too massive, it's not compatible with that neighborhood, it needs to be pushed back, it needs to be lowered, the landscape is not adequate, that plan. We all get very upset when we see trees being removed and we don't see what's going to happen with them. And so I also think the plate heights, you've heard about maybe the roof, or we've heard a lot of design ideas, you've heard a lot. And so I just want to say that I echo everything that this commission has said, with its very, I think, well-reasoned and thorough comments. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we continue this project.
So I think the question would be, before we make a motion for what date, how the applicant would feel about the next meeting, and do we have, under the Permit Streamlining Act, can we continue it to?
Yes,
Just one?
so the applicant and I were kind of eyeballing each other. Seem to agree with March being the date, and that's March 25th. If we can get on the record that that's the request, plus waiving the Permit Streamlining Act, that way we can go beyond March 10th. March 10th is the action date.
Okay, so if the applicant could state whether they would waive the Permit Streamlining Act?
Yes, we would waive it. We need a new landscape architect.
Okay.
All right, so you're agreeing to.
Not here.
Try to get that.
All right.
Will that date allow them to consolidate all the design review items?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, more than enough, yes.
Okay.
Good.
So the motion, Commissioner Okazaki, is
Is to
to.
move it to the March 23rd commission.
25th, March 25th.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Could you poll the commission, please?
Commissioner Ogasaki,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyle,
Yes.
Vice Chair Dustin,
Yes.
Chair Wright,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. With that, we'll see you in March. All right. Now on to item number 3, 1625 Old Mill Road. If we could have a staff report, please.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Item 3 is design review case number DRC 19-74 HP. This is a new home project. Staff wants to clarify that in the public notice that went out to the neighbors included a variance request. And since we published the notice, that variance request is no longer applicable. That was pertaining to the undersized interior dimension of the garage. And as you notice on your plans, that the existing garage, which the applicant is proposing to keep, it has the 20 by 20 dimension. So we're only looking at the design review action for the new residence.
I'm not trying to understand, so the variance was required because the existing garage didn't?
At some
meet-
point, we didn't have confirmation that the interior size of the
Oh, I
garage
see.
met the 20 by 20.
Okay, so it was measured and found?
Yes.
Okay.
So no need for the variance.
So I apologize for that oversight on your staff report. The second issue is, I believe, there was question about the existing circular driveway. The property is located in Area District 5, which normally would require a conditional use permit to have a circular driveway. Because this is an existing circular driveway and the paving area within the front yard is under 45%, the applicant is allowed to alter the paving area so long that they don't exceed that existing 45%. So you will no longer see the asphalt driveway in the front anymore. Along with the construction of the new home, they will be providing the appropriate concrete material in the front yard.
So in the map, or in the drawings where it says to remain, that's no longer the case?
To remain, but it'll be repaved with the...
It'll be repaved with new material.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Do you know the actual percentage of the impervious?
It's approximately 43%. They're about,
Yeah.
we calculated that.
It's no surprise that I'm not a fan of circular driveways on a lot that size, so, okay, thank you.
So moving on to the design review action. The legal neighborhood comprises of 1- and 2-story structures in various traditional styles. The proposed 2-story residence is in keeping with the development in the legal neighborhood. While there are 2-story structures within the legal neighborhood, staff is concerned with the overall building height that will result in a higher structure on this particular lot, especially that it is flanking 2 single-story buildings. The north and south neighbors will essentially be lower, and for that reason, this new home will effectively alter the streetscape of this portion of Old Mill as you travel south on Old Mill after you turn on Huntington Drive. So although the overall design is effective in screening the second story, meaning that the proposed home will have a single-story appearance when you look at it from the street, the resulting roof design is busy and is inconsistent with the garage. They have different slope. And the design review guidelines encourages consistent roof slope between the main house and the garage. As for the exterior material, they will be consistent. The applicant will be providing new material on the existing garage to make it consistent with the new homes. However, staff is recommending that there is a discrepancy on the plans. In one place, the roofing material is called out as Boral Cedar Light in Silverwood color. In another location, the plans call out Boral Madeira. They are both essentially the same, just they have different weight. The Boral Cedar Light material is on the city's pre-approved list. For that reason, staff is recommending a clarification on the plans that the project be providing Boral Cedar Light material. And staff, because of the proposed height issue, staff is not able to make the finding for compatibility with the legal neighborhood, and staff is recommending that the commission continue this project to a future meeting, if you so agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Vice Chair Dustin is usually turning pages.
Oh, no, sure, yes.
All right, no questions? Okay. Could the applicant or the applicant's representative please come forward? Thank you for waiting so patiently.
Good evening, planning and commissioners. Usually Philip comes here to present, but I have the privilege to come to my first meeting, so it's pretty exciting.
So give us your name and address.
Yes, my name is Albert Ng, and the address we're looking at right now is 1625 Old Mill Road. So Philip and I have designed this house for Mr. and Mrs. Cheng to basically to include their home for their kids and family. The family wishes to include their home with 4 bedrooms and also a second loft area at the second floor, and it's comprised about around 300 square feet. So the existing 2-car garage is meant to remain. The proposed design is a minimal traditional home that is consistent with the existing structure as well. It uses low or intermediate roof pitch, closed eave, and wood window trims, and also a front porch that uses wood element as well. So it has all the elements that speaks well with a traditional home. And if you look at the material board, we also enhance the feature by adding the shutters. So it gives off the accents from the white windows to the sidings you see on, or the stucco you see on the walls. So in the design process, We want to ensure that this home not only fulfills the needs of the family, but also it ties in with the rest of the neighborhood. They do want to have a second floor loft area, but we want to make sure that it does not stand out as a two-story home. So there's a lot of compromise we made on this house, such as there are no windows on the second floor. The only lighting and ventilation is the skylight facing the north side. So when you drive up from the south side of the lower area, you don't see the skylight. The other thing is the plate height of the first floor is 9 feet, but in order to put the loft on the second floor, we compromised the height of the hallway and the closet inside the house to 8 feet. So we lose 1 feet there in order to give a ceiling height of 7 feet at least on the top. So I would like to address the two items that are critical to this design review, which is the height of the home and the roof design. So if you see on the elevation sheets, all four sides I have the roof from the eave to the ridge. There's no windows protruding except the skylight. And that does provide privacy, and in a way, it looks like a one-story home, even though it is a two-story home. And when we first submitted, we have the house at 24 feet. So we know that it is too big at the beginning, but after several revision and correction from the planning EVA, we managed to get the height at 21 feet 10. Yeah, so then what we did there was we reduced the loft area to about 9 feet width in there, which is almost the minimum width in order to put a 3-peak table for it to be usable. And also by reducing the height, the ceiling of the loft became 6 feet 8 inches. By building code, 50% of the vaulted ceiling area has to meet 7 feet. So luckily, by the compromise we made on the hallway, the lower floor joists, and also the lower roof, we managed to have 6 feet 8 from the starting point to whichever height is around 7 feet, 8 feet, and 9 feet. So what we have is a smart design that utilizes a good strategy that looks like a one-story home, yet it's usable. As for the roofing design, so if you look on the site plan, this is a triangular pie-shaped loft, and that was one of the design difficulties we usually looked at in somewhere in Arcadia and also San Marino, because what we want to do is utilize the setback, but yet not too far. The minimum setback for this house is 8 feet, but we gave it 8 feet 7. And we did articulation because we do not want to extend the back of the house toward the rear. Because what we noticed is if you look on the south side, it's actually on a lower profile. The more you extend out, it's going to block the view of the mountain, even though it might block some of the traffic noise, but you block the view. You don't block the view of the mountain. Yeah, we work with several different alternatives that can minimize the roof. When we first submitted the project, there were a lot of crickets and roof valleys. And what we ended up doing was we cleaned up the floor plan, make sure some of the wall planes are flat. So what you see today is one of the best solutions. It's cleaner. It has cleaner roof planes. So overall, I believe this is compatible with the neighborhood. I will turn this to the owners.
Hold on for a moment. Does anyone have questions? Commissioner Boyd?
correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, I was not able to find any information on the height of the front door.
8 feet.
8 feet? Thank you.
Right up to the,
Vice Chair Dustin?
Your detail schedule lists the shutters as louvered, but your elevations depict raised panel and your materials board depicts a raised panel shutter. Which are you proposing?
I believe at some point we changed the design, but the elevation schedule is the most updated, so which is the raised panel. The louver
Well, the
has.
schedule says louvered.
Okay, and most likely in the revision, we will change it back to raised as the front elevations on the.
So they'll be raised panel. All right.
Any other questions? Then the owners would like to come forward?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Wendy Chang. This is my husband, Derek Chang. Thank you for your time and consideration for our project on Old Mill. We'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about us and share our personal approach and thoughts behind this project. I was 6 years old when my parents moved me to San Marino, and I've considered it home ever since. My husband and I both practice medicine at Cedars full-time for the past 15 years. Our family settled in a beautiful home in Beverly Hills, but about 2 years ago, we chose San Marino to spend the rest of our lives. Our children, Kayla, Kyle, and Kristen, now attend the same school I went to at Valentine. We're surrounded by friends and family, so the 5 of us could not be happier. Even though our commute to work is grueling, the comfort and ease we feel in this town is well worth it. We are happy now to be building our forever home on Old Mill. My parents, who have lived in San Marino for 36 years, have always appreciated the unique, tasteful and traditional neighborhood the city has maintained for decades. We chose to move back not just for the top-rated schools, but we too also really love the look and feel of San Marino. We've worked tirelessly with our architect to conform to the San Marino look. We've opted to change very little of the exterior style of the home. We've even invited some of our neighbors over while the flags were up just to make sure there were no objections. We feel our plans depict a very traditional home where we will raise our 3 children and where we will grow old.
Hi, my name is Derek. Thank you again, Commissioners, for reviewing the plans. This is my first time at one of these meetings, but I'm very impressed with the time and thoughtfulness that you guys put into this. So, with that being said, actually, I just wanted to give you a quick background and kind of how we got to the plans you have in front of you today. So, when we started off, we actually just wanted to add some square footage in the back, and then we realized that the driveway was actually pretty narrow, kind of going in and out, it'd be hard to access the garage. I've clipped off a couple mirrors in my day, unfortunately. So we wanted a better way to actually access the garage. And initially we thought, well, we'll move the garage to the front. But when you look at the surrounding neighborhood, besides the house to the north of us, there wasn't really a lot of houses with the garage. And we wanted to conform with the neighborhood. So we decided, well, we're probably going to need to widen the driveway. But if we widen the driveway, that essentially means we're going to be tearing down the north side of the house, and it was really a bigger project than we thought. So we actually thought, well, maybe we could put a second story on there to kind of gain some square footage. But again, looking at the rest of the neighborhood, this didn't really conform. So we did what Al had laid out, was we made a one-story home, kind of put a loft into there, so we could hopefully kind of get a similar feel on to the rest of our neighbors. And the height of the house is an issue. I know that it's been brought up, but I just want to bring up that the loft is important to us, and we've made a lot of changes to the plan. to try to bring down the height. And I think if we bring it down anymore, it's really going to make our loft small. And what we really envisioned was this is an area where the kids can play, they can have their toys. My daughter's kind of gotten into art, so we have an art studio up there for her. And when they get older, they can use that as a study. So the smaller it gets, by lowering the roof, it would be a little tough for us, I think. We worked as hard as we could to bring it down from 24 feet to 22 feet. We have the store pulls up, as Linda was mentioning, and we've had support from our neighbors. So, you know, as you look, there haven't been any objections. We have a couple of our neighbors who wrote in and actually say, you know, they like the house. You know, compact, beautiful, lovely. Two of our neighbors are here, Dan and Julie, who basically wrote in support of the plan. So, I just wanted to say we have tried our best to conform to the neighborhood, tried our best to make this look like something that the rest of our neighbors would love and appreciate as much as we do.
Thank you very much. I just want to say I appreciate your comments about your background, but unfortunately we don't make our decisions based on people's, how they want to use the house, or we're very happy to hear people like the city, but we have to base our decision on the property and to make the findings based on the code. Just want to make that clear. But I love hearing your story. Anybody else who would like to please come up and give us your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Julie Monfloyd and my husband Dan Floyd, and we live at 1635 Old Mill Road, so we are directly south adjacent to their house. And I absolutely love it. And we walked it, you know, they came over, brought plans, we walked through it and everything, and we think it's going to look wonderful. It's the same designers who did the 1221 Roanoke, right across the street on the corner of Old Mill and Roanoke. And that house is beautiful. So when we heard that that was the designer that they were using, we were thrilled because, you know, if you haven't gone through it yet, it's just gorgeous. And so when we walk through, we're looking at it, and I know you're worried about the height, but when I look out the kitchen window when I cook, you know, I see the white side of the, you know, the wall. It doesn't really matter if it goes up, you know, 2 or 3 feet more or 4. I wouldn't see any more or any less than what's there right now. So it really wouldn't have an impact on the height, you know, even though we're lower, our property is lower. And when we walked through, there was, you know, we don't have windows looking into our yard, which we appreciate. And there was only one other, you know, comment that we had about it, and that was where they had some, you know, foliage, you know, going along the wall when you're going out to the front of the street. And we just requested, you know, anything, if there is any foliage, you know, just to have it be low, or, you know, just have a wall, you know, a low wall that's there now, because we have a coyote problem. And they come down the street, they look up our, you know, we need to know if there's something right there. But I think it's terrific, and I think it's a very good, thoughtful plan. They've gone out of their way to be hospitable to their neighbors, and I never thought I would be saying that I would look forward to, you know, construction or a fence going up around it, you know, when we're living next to it, but I think it's a great house. Thank you. And my husband?
If I could add a couple things. As you know, the area on Old Mill Road south of Huntington Drive is small. Not very many houses there. This is, or will be, the 4th upgrade in our little tiny area over whatever the last decade. At a time, a long time ago, a former city councilman, trying to be polite to me, made reference to our little block along the lines, and he was trying to be nice, but he wasn't capable of really saying it very properly. Well, you're the unimproved, the unupgraded, you know, we're all 1-story houses. So now you've got the 1 to 3 story houses. Well, the 1-story, there's only one other 1-story other than ours, and that's the one up on right up on Huntington Drive. And that house is quite a bit higher than their house, which is quite a bit higher than our house. We're the other 1-story house. So we dwarf it. You look across the street, if you count a basement, they put in 3 stories on that tiny lot. So, but what I want to say is there's progression going on in our little area, which has made the houses look significantly nicer. Huge increases in value. If you look at the one right across the street that just got completed, what it did, it's a gorgeous house, what it's done to the values in the community, and by definition, our house is enormous. So it's part of the ongoing progression of what's happening, and my suspicion is on this height issue, you're looking at our house, which is the one story left, is down lower, and somehow that's tying it in. But I think you're missing something. If you look at our house and you look at our backyard, there are 3 levels of lot behind us. You've got our house, you've got a middle level, and you've got another level that goes up to the alley behind Colonial Kitchen. Part of that lot behind that alley is higher than their swimming pool. So our actual property at the upper end is higher than where their property is at. Now you look to our neighbors to the south, and when they were putting up their 2-story, they'd initially had a window looking on our backyard, and we objected to that, and they were kind enough to take it out. They talked to us first, and I told us that was our primary objection. We didn't want anything looking down in our backyard. They took it out. So we have no issue. But there's 2 points I want to make on that height issue. One, on that upper lot, I know our neighbor to the south has a gazebo there. I know I believe they have a driveway capability back there. There's a whole lot up there that if somebody, ourselves or somebody else, wanted to do something to that 3rd lot, their house wouldn't look unusual at all. And I'm just talking simple things, gazebos, things like that. So you look at our level, which is lower than theirs, you look at the middle level, and then you look at the upper level, there's part of our property that is up there that can be used, have something on it, obviously subject to your approval, that would fit right into that community, right into the community. The last point I wanted to make is, as Julie said, we had some concerns about the vegetation and some of those things. And we walked the property. They were kind enough, to invite us over to walk the property. We walked it, we stood all around. And on the backside, on our driveway, they mentioned about putting in vegetation similar to what was put in across the street, the trees that grow up and hide. Well, their lot's higher than ours, so that's going to give our lot more privacy. The biggest issues we've had with the house up on the upper, they look down at our backyard. Their house looks on our backyard. They may be putting up a higher structure, but they're not looking down on our backyard. They have no window. With the vegetation they're going to put on the backside of that fence, it's going to give us more privacy rather than less. And as Julie mentioned, we don't want anything tall in front of their fence because not only the coyotes, which like to sit up there and look at our pets from it's a little hiding spot, but also our dining room is down on that corner of the driveway. So we want to be able to have light in our dining room when we're using our dining room. And by the structure they put in, and I've stood on the hill looking in and looked down on it, it does not impede our dining room in any way, shape, or form. No light impairment, no issues of anything along those lines. So based upon all of those considerations, we don't believe the height's an issue. We're comfortable with the building. What we've seen in the progression in this neighborhood over the last 10 years is phenomenal. If you went back and looked at our little block 10 years ago, we're the little kid on the block, and we think we distort that a little bit, but things are progressing. We shouldn't be holding that against them, because what's been done, there was a time we were told, 10 years ago, you couldn't put 2-story lots in our area. Now they're putting them all in and everything else. It's part of the natural progression that has made our block much more attractive and much more valuable.
Appreciate it. All right. Anyone else like to speak for or against or about this project? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, and I think it's your turn, Vice Chair Decker.
For me, it isn't so much the height of the proposal, it's that large expanse of roof that is visible. It just looks very distorted. The house looks very top-heavy because of that large slope of roof. I think the plate heights are not consistent with those established in the homes of the neighborhood, and that contributes to that effect with the roof. I also share the concerns of staff about the roof plan and the discrepancy between the pitch on the garage and the home. This house has a lot of architectural details. Usually we have to fight to get people to do appropriate detailing. Most architectural details evolve from a functional need at some point in time. Nowadays, most of those details are really just decorative. They are not there for the functional purpose that spurred them to come into existence. And that can be a dangerous thing because now people tend to just sort of flip through a catalog and pick details that they think look attractive, and then they sort of salt and pepper them on a home. This house has a lot going on. The window surrounds are highly detailed. There's a lot of shutter work. Some of it's kind of haphazard. Some of the shutters are used with windows that are just, because of their width, shutters wouldn't be functional on those windows. They wouldn't be workable. Leader heads on a single-story home are just functionally useless. They have a specific function for long downspout runs of 2 stories or more. So those kinds of details can be helpful and attractive, but I just think in this case, their combined impact produces a kind of a chaotic visual presentation that detracts from the overall style. The 8-foot entry door is just not in scale with the house, and it has a very distorted sense of human scale. So the overload of details and oversized features just kind of results in a house that becomes an exaggerated caricature of a house. So I believe some more careful selection of the detailing is warranted. The fenestration is not consistent. There's, again, this house would benefit from a more horizontal look, but the panes of the glass in the windows tend to be either very square or vertical, which doesn't allow your eyes to just take a horizontal glance across the facade. And the fact that you have a difference in orientation of the window panes, some of them are vertical and some of them are square, some of them look like they even border on horizontal. They should be similar. The plate glass rear doors are not compatible with the fenestration on the rest of the house. They should have divided lights to be consistent. I also concur with the staff recommendation on the roof material. That should be the cedar light material. I'm glad to hear that the shutters are, I would need to see that in the plans, that they're going to be the raised panel, because the open louvered shutters, I checked with the manufacturer, they're not true open louvers. They're faux louvers, just with a textured look to them, and I don't think it would be appropriate. Lastly, on your materials board and on your renderings, you have some beautiful landscaping, big, large trees that soften the look of this house and that oversized roof. Those trees are imaginary, they don't exist. And from what I see in your planting schedule, they're not going to exist. There's an olive tree in that front yard. It's in very poor condition. I think it's because it's been very poorly pruned over the years. So I'd like to see a condition that tree be evaluated by a certified arborist, and that arborist come up with a recovery plan that the applicant would follow to get that tree back into health. Last comment, I believe front yard hedges in this district are limited to 4 feet, and I measured that front yard hedge that exists and is to remain, and it's 6 feet. So that needs to be brought into compliance. So I'm not ready to approve it as it is presented.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle?
I agree with everything, of course. I always agree with everything that Commissioner Justin says, but I do agree with everything. And I also agree with the staff report in the sense that I am not ready to approve this either. Speaking of Ava, I realize I have another question, especially as it pertains, since we are having to evaluate this roof. and the requirement now is to have the solar panels. Moving forward, is there any way that we can include
Sure.
what the roof would look like and have somebody who has come out and looked and said, this is where the solar panels will go, so that we can understand that? And part of the reason is because I know that solar panels are also going to add a good 5 or 6 inches to height, or, you know, I mean, a lot of different things. And as it pertains to like the neighbors, they might not mind what they're looking at now, but that is going to be the part of the roof that all of the solar panels will go on. So while you may think it's not that big, when you add more mass to it because you have solar panels, you might actually disagree that it would be unsightly looking out your kitchen window. I'm not saying you wouldn't, I'm just saying that it's something that I think that we really need to consider in the future as to where all of those panels are going to go. And especially when we have a house like this where the roof is in question and has so many dimensions to it, that it's really, we need to figure out
What's
how
the
that's...
process going to be for approving the solar panels, the location of the solar panels, do you know?
So location of solar panel is actually falls under the state's Solar Rights Act. The city highly encourage applicants to locate panels away from the street facing elevation. However,
You can't mandate it.
correct.
Right.
It's an encouragement. Going forward, staff can consider, of course, with the approval of the director, can consider adding a requirement to demonstrate the location of solar panel
Okay.
on the initial submittal.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And then, I mean,
We would like that.
in terms of the, because it is mandated by state law, like, I mean, is the house not, I guess, what is that verification process, or when does it come in that the city gets involved to make sure, like, hey, this is a new house? Like, do all of the people who submitted for this meeting, do they know that they have solar panel requirements? Do they have to
This is
This
actually,
is a tear down.
Well, it's technically a remodel, but yeah, there's only 3 walls that are going to be standing.
Well, I mean, but it actually says a new
Request
story.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's an element that's generally attached at the plan check building code stage.
Okay.
When it comes to design review on solar panels, as far as placements, locations, that kind of thing is we just can't even go there. We can't even discuss that because of the Solar Right Act. There's other provisions in the state law that really make that an administrative process. And we can't really deny, based off locations of solar panels. There's all kinds of protections on them. So, but to answer the question, it is an element that will come up as part of the building code process.
Okay. When you weren't in the room, I was just requesting that in the future we might be able to have included in our designs like a mock-up of where they think that they'll be putting the solar panels so that we can have that as a visualization.
Okay.
Again, understanding that we can't
Right. Okay.
move them or anything like that, but at least so that everybody understands what that does to contribute to the massing
Right.
of the roof. And so that's my biggest concern with regards to this roof, is just understanding, because, not only is it have a lot of stuff, and we want to have a loft and the sunlight and all of that kind of stuff, but also I want to see what the solar panels will look like on it, if possible. And then again, I am going to constantly just talk about these landscape plans. There is not enough information on here for me to comfortably approve these landscape plans. For one thing, it seems like there's 3 trees being planted, that's it, which means that there is barely any shade canopy. And if I see this correctly, everything around the swimming pool is concrete, the driveway is concrete, there's a stamped concrete patio, there's the concrete driveway, there's the roof. Like, that is just a lot of material that absorbs heat and contributes to the heat island effect, which you all know I have a problem with. And so without having more details of larger trees being put in here, whether it's healing that olive, deciding that that olive tree needs to go out, and what they're going to replace it with, those are the kind of things that I would need to see to feel comfortable approving these designs.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernacki.
You know, my opinion is that I thought this was a wonderfully designed house. It fits right into the neighborhood. I didn't see the problem that the staff saw with the roofing. I didn't think that the width of the roof was that massive for me. Looking at it on this sort of a curvilinear street, as you're driving, you don't even notice it. Unless you're standing across the street as a pedestrian, I don't think that the massing of that roof is as a bigger problem. Nor is the height. I think it's integrated well. But I also would like to see a little bit more on the landscaping. I don't mind waiting until we see a plan of that. But the house, I thought, was well designed. I think the owners and the architect worked really well, in my opinion. And I'm glad that you were able to squeeze in a small loft there to increase the size of your property and still working closely with your neighbors. I mean, I never saw neighbors, so many neighbors supporting a project as many as, you know, almost 80% of the people that they were contacted say they supported with no objection. So I think this was a plan that was well, I guess, coordinated with the neighborhood. So I appreciate the owners working with the neighbors and getting the immediate neighbor to support it. I think that's a very good strategy to have them show up and do that. I think that was very good. And I appreciated the comment about your commitment to this community and the love for the community. And I think that's very nice. And I think you put your feelings well into your commitment to designing this building to fit right into the community. So I appreciate that effort.
Thank you. Commissioner King?
I tend to agree with what James just said. I think the project, with the support from a 10-year-old neighbor that know the neighborhood, says a lot to me, because I think that's just what San Marino is all about. I know you make a comment about, well, who you are coming to the community and try to do a project. We don't make that determination based on who you are, or what you want it for. But I think we had made comment before about people coming in, just using it as a speculation project, come in, buy it, build it to the maximum, and dump it in the market and try to make a couple $1 million. We did make comments about those that is not what we really want. I think we encourage homeowners that are really building their home rather than for them to use themselves, rather than come in and do the maximum, flip it and walk away. I think I see through the plan that it truly is a family home. You're going to build it to live. It's not something people will not spec on like this with a second-story loft, because that doesn't sell. But you know that. And so I agree with some of the comments that John made about some of the details. I think that can be improved to make it a little bit more pleasant. But I do appreciate the neighbors' comment about, I have no problem with the height, the volume, the size, all of that. Landscaping, yes, there is room for improvement. I think we should have the applicant go back to the landscape architect and try to improve make the project landscaping-wise the best they could, and then improve some of the architecture details. But other than that, I think next time when they come back, I think I don't have any problem with the volume, the height. They just need to improve some of the architecture details. That would be my view.
Okay. Commissioner Ross?
When I saw these plans on paper, as opposed to the previous application, I thought that the staff had made a pretty good judgment in the fact that the roof was overly done. But when I got to the location, the little flags, what are the story flags? They were just about the same height, at least the tallest one, as the chimneys. And so therefore the height isn't really the problem, it's the darn roof that you see so much of. Now, if that could be corrected, I'm not an architect, but I don't know, maybe you could, if it's just little kids in the top floor, maybe anyway, there was so many inconsistencies on the plan, as John pointed out, that I have to agree that it looked like if you had an idea, you put it on the paper rather than giving it some architectural standing and consistency. Other than that, if those problems can be overcome and addressed, that would be okay with me.
All right, thank you. I really struggled with this one. I had the same reaction that Commissioner Ross did when I first read the staff report. I didn't like it at all, but then when I went to the site, I was less concerned. The orientation of the lot and the house, and it just didn't, it seemed to be a type of lot that could handle that kind of design. Have respect for the staff, so that's part of my dilemma. Agree about the landscape plan. I think we're all in agreement that it's not appropriate. I know, I'm struggling with it. And one of the things that I also agree with Commissioner Okazaki is that I was also struck by the fact that so many people approved this project. We just don't see that. In fact, the project before this, I was very concerned when I saw 8 no responses. I don't like a project to come to us and 8 no responses. What is with that? It's very disturbing. People don't care about the neighborhood, or we're not doing the outreach, or both. You did the outreach. I very much respect that. I think the neighbors respected that. I hear what the neighbors think, of course, but we do have an obligation as well to make sure our code is also protected in the neighborhood. So you can see I'm struggling with it. I understand also Commissioner Cheney's comment about, yes, we want homeowners and we don't want people coming in flip houses. That's of course true, but I've also seen personally people who tell me they're gonna own it and move into it, and guess what? They don't. Or something happens and they have to move and it gets flipped anyway. You know, things happen. And that's why our code is designed and our findings are designed to deal with property, the land, and not the applicant or the owner. It just has to be that way. So, okay, so with all that, I guess I would entertain a motion. See where we are.
I'll make a motion to continue DRC 19-74 HP to a future meeting.
Can we agree upon?
Yeah.
If the motion carries, all right, is there a second?
This, on the last project, we kind of agreed to the owner for March 25th.
Right, and I was gonna suggest to the owners and the applicant what day they would like. It's, right now at the moment is February or March.
Do it next month.
February 26th?
Yeah.
Okay.
With an arborist report.
We can always move it. But they agree to February 26th.
All right, so that's the motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you the poll, Commissioner?
Commissioner Okazaki?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyle?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dustin?
Yes.
Chair Wright?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion carries. And just as we've said before, to take into account what everybody said, and I think the consensus, the not as good as a consensus sometimes, but the consensus is used for design details, the landscape, and just think about the living
I think there's enough time for the architect to take on what, for her, the deliberation and revise that a little bit.
Yeah, I was thinking a couple of good size,
See the
large,
changes that come on.
large trees in front to block the view of the mass of the roof. You know,
Trees can be,
they can do a good job,
Yeah,
but
trees
good
look
size
like
tree, a white specimen, that's good.
well, anyway, I think you've heard our comments. So,
Change nothing and just put a big tree in the
Couple of them.
all right, with that,
Actually, it's a
we're
good
done with this
idea.
item. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you soon.
What did a big tree cost? Couple $1 million,
All right, so
$1,000?
we've handled
Could be a
item
lot in.
four.
At least 1,000 maybe.
Really? Well, you never know. I think it would be I don't know what kind of tree you'd want to put up. Is it a Christmas tree?
If you could be quiet, if you could exit, we're still doing business, believe it or not. Thank you very much. All right, item number 5, resolution number PCR 19-28. I had a question about this, and I forgot to mention it. Section 4 of this resolution talks about the planning commission considered the conditional use permit request for installation of a bathroom to a detached accessory structure. Was that part of this
No.
real estate office?
No, that's,
I didn't.
So I think that needs to be revised.
yeah.
And since you're gonna have to revise it, if you go to page 2, section 5B, you know I have to give you my little grammar. And the end of it should be, functions of the property will be affected. And then section 6 on page 3, based upon the foregoing findings in section 4, I think you mean in section 5.
5.
The planning commission developers. Besides that, it's just perfect.
Wow, good eye.
I was at another meeting today and they did not appreciate my attention to detail. Okay, it's a, yeah, it's a, yeah, professional to have it, right? Okay, so with that though, do you still want us to vote on it with those amendments?
Yes, please,
All right,
with
so a
amendment.
motion, please.
I so move as amended.
Great, motion.
I second.
Right, and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, motion carries to approve resolution PCR 1998. Number 6 is asking for approval of our meetings from November 26, 2019. Any changes? Yes, I didn't see any. So, motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No, so that motion carries. And with that, I think we're adjourned until February
26.
26.
Pretty good.
Thank you.
All right. 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 All right.